Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. On behalf of the entire team here at CAST, welcome to a very special webinar broadcast live from our headquarters here in Toronto, Canada. As many of you are aware, CAST have recently launched the latest version of wysiwyg, that's R42. This most recent version of wysiwyg includes some fantastic new features, and we're actually really pleased to have with us here today Dino Mazza, Product Manager for wysiwyg. So whether you're an existing user or considering switching to wysiwyg, this webinar will provide you with an overview of features in R42 before going through a few tips and tricks that I'm sure you'll find very useful. The webinar itself will run for 1 hour and 10 minutes, which is slightly longer than advertised, before opening for questions. We do ask for this webinar that we limit questions to the new features of R42 only. Other features and how-to questions will be covered in future webinars. So if we can please focus on R42 with your questions, it would be appreciated. I'm sure that many of you do have questions for Dino, so please submit the questions through the chat portal as early as possible to allow our moderators time for review. Now, I won't take up any more of your time. It's without further delay, I hand the mic over to Dino.
And hello, everyone. I'm Dino Mazza. Can everyone hear me? I'm the wysiwyg product manager, and I'm here today on this beautiful white and freezing cold -30 day in Toronto, Canada, home of CAD Software and all of our products. I'm honored here to be delivering to you the R42 webinar and being the 4th presenter of our webinar series, which included some of our great and longtime users, Durham Marengi, Tim Rutledge, and James Simpson before me. Before I begin today, I just wanted to say thank you to Durham, to Tim, and to James for their wonderful and exciting webinars. And personally, I'm always interested to see how each of our users uses wysiwyg on their own projects. And today it's my turn to introduce some of the new features of R42, sharing some insights and tips of each of the new features, and hopefully help you integrate them into your regular work process. So let me begin. We're going to shut off the webcam now. I'm going to switch over to the other screen.
Getting ready for video. So intro slide.
Okay. I'm hoping by now you've all had a chance to try out the new R42 release. It was released in mid-January, but it is technically a December release in terms of membership requirements. And actually, I'd like to take care of one first order of business right out of the way. We have received some reports of some users experiencing crashes when running R42 and switching to shaded view on some computers. We have tracked down the issue, and we know it's experienced by some of you who are running on computers with integrated graphics cards, such as the Intel HD Graphics 520 and 530 series, 620 and 630 series as well. We already have a fix for this problem, and we've let some of our users experiencing this issue try it out, and they have confirmed that the crash is now fixed on their system with our update build. So this update has given us a chance to fix a few other minor bugs that have been reported over the last couple of weeks. And we'll be sending out an update shortly, probably within a few days or early next week. So without further ado, let's begin with looking at the new features of release 42. So here is the welcome screen of R42. We'll start off with a few simple features to get us warmed up. Today I'm running with a lease product. As you can see, my lease expiry date is December 31st, 2019, which is about 11 months away from today. Previously, users had to wait 30 days prior to their lease expiry to enter their lease lease code to renew their lease. This is no longer the case. Once you accept the terms and condition, you can paste in your lease validation code as such, click on the renew button, and off you go. I won't be doing that today, so I'll click on later. Okay, so back up to the help menu, and I'll bring up the support menu. I should point out that when you ever contact support, there's the information. It's good, it's convenient, and it's in the software. Just below that is the computer information button. when you click on this, it actually, WYSIWYG will list for you all your computer information. When you click OK to this dialog, click yes, and your computer specification will be listed for you. So this is actually what I'm running on with my demo today, as you can see. And this is important information when contacting support to help sort out an issue. So I would recommend whenever you contact support to have that pasted in your email and sent off to us. Whenever you have an issue with a graphics problem in the shaded view, if you click on the second button, it brings you into this dialog, which gives you the WYSIWYG graphics log. Again, very important information and something that you should include, especially when shaded view has an issue or crashing. Finally, the third button here is the Export My WYSIWYG Registry. This exports the toolbar positions of your UI and saves it as a registry, and then you could share that with somebody else. It's a subset of what you would see in the WUD. Finally, the Reset My UI will reset your GUI into the default positioning, which is what you would see when you start off WYSIWYG first time. So now that I restart WYSIWYG, you'll see that my toolbars are in position in their default orientation. Along the right here, you see that we've now added in the position tool, which is a new feature right above the library browser and layer database. And I'm running R42 with the colorful toolbar set because later I'll be using R41 and I'll keep them in the orange toolbar set. Okay. So let's move up to the options, application options, and now I'm pointing to the shaded view camera control in the general tab. WYSIWYG has traditionally only had one camera control set, but we've added a second one in R42 with a drop down, and it's the other 3D applications option here. This was a special request from our Blacktracks development team as they use WYSIWYG Blacktracks. And now these camera controls will match for them WYSIWYG's shaded view controls with other software that they use in parallel to WYSIWYG. But these are features that maybe you would enjoy or prefer using as well when using shaded views. So let me open up a demo file that I'll be using today for most of this demo. Switching over into the shaded view. And for now, let's turn up our ambient light, and I'll start some video as well. So we have something playing in the background and we are not looking at an ugly gray box. So we'll start that video for you. So the difference between this new 3D application camera system is that the left button is used for selection at all times. And to orbit or rotate your camera, you would be using the right mouse button, as I'm doing right now, as I rotate left and right and up and down. Pivoting the camera can be done with the Alt and the right mouse button as well. And then dollying the camera is done by pressing the middle mouse button and dragging up and down or left and right, as I'm doing right now. Zooming is accomplished with the mouse scroll wheel as usual. So there are slight variations there with using the mouse wheel, using it with the Alt button. So those are some of the main differences. But as you can see, I can now just click on an object using my left mouse button and it selects automatically without the need to hit Tab to put myself into a selection mode in the shaded view. So I'm selecting fixtures. I can even do a bounding box drag selection, and it'll select basically any items since we're in the CAD view right now. So this is a new feature that you can definitely take advantage of if you prefer. Everybody will have a different preference, of course. So I encourage you to look up the details of the camera system. They're available in the R42 release notes on page 7 and 8. And then you choose which one you prefer to use. Personally, I've been using WYSIWYG for many, many years, and I've gotten used to the traditional WYSIWYG camera system. So I'll just switch it back to traditional WYSIWYG. And now when I left click and move my mouse, drag, I can now orbit the camera as such, and I'm used to the way it is before. I guess this is good information to know even if you're not using it, because you might go to somebody else's computer one day and now they have a completely different camera setup. So you now know where to go into the options, application options, general tab, and you know how to switch it to your preferred camera system. Okay. So the next feature we're going to talk about is the shortcut dividers. We've added new shortcut separator option in the shortcut. So I've switched over into my fixture groups. And when I right click, there's a new option down at the bottom of the list called Add Separator. So that will just create a gray separator bar. And using Alt and drag, I can move it up or down. By the way, that's the same control that you use if you want to reorder your shortcuts in the shortcut bar. But basically with this divider, you can now organize your shortcuts in a sensible way to make it easy for you to recall them. If you prefer the list, I'm now showing you that the abbreviated list will have the little series of tilde that appear to divide your shortcut as well. Switching over into the Manage Shortcut area, you have this list, and you could from here also add the separators, and you could delete and reorder them as well. So we'll switch back to icons, and that's the way they look right there. Yeah, so that's it for the divide shortcut. Let's switch over to the next video. Okay, so we've now just started the second video, and I'm just going to clear up here the video tool and move out the position tool as well. So I'm going to bring up the ambient light as well to make it a little bit easier for everyone to see. I do have some fixtures that are on the stage floor, on stage left and stage right, and you can see from my shortcut when I select them, there's stage right, there's stage left. So we're going to be talking about a new floor position feature that was added in 42. And I'm going to create a custom tab, which is not a feature of R42. It was introduced previously, but it's a great feature that I use all the time. And I wanted to introduce it here in this webinar. And maybe it's something that you haven't used before. So I've created a new tab along the bottom. It's called the CAD and Shaded, because I've split my screen with the wireframe in the left side and the shaded view on the right. What I'm also going to do is I've selected the right side, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the right side shaded view again into two separate panes. So View menu, View pane, and I'm going to select Divide Pane horizontally, and now that's going to separate my shaded view into two separate shaded views. But I'll select the top one, go up to the Windows toolbar, which I just opened, and find Display Spreadsheet View. When I do this, it'll now display a spreadsheet view for me on the same screen. So with this setup, I have my wireframe view, my spreadsheet, and my shaded view, and any selection that I make from one of these views is synchronized and can happen and visualized on the other views as well. So there's my stage left floor position fixtures. And if you look up into the spreadsheet, you'll notice that in the position column, they're all using floor. So opening up the position manager, hitting the plus button, I'm now going to create a new position called SR floor for stage right floor fixtures. And make sure that you click on that floor checkbox to make it a floor position. And let's repeat and make it another one called SL floor for stage left floor. Again, select the floor checkbox. So now I have 3 floor positions, and I can use them, any of those 3, to assign my floor fixtures to the new floor positions. So I'll select the ones there on stage right. go into the position column, click and drag the cells, and from the drop down now, I am able to assign SR floor, and I'll repeat the same thing for the ones on the left. So this is a new feature, and it's very helpful, so that way you can basically organize your floor fixtures the same way you have previously organized your fixtures that are usually on hang structures, so pipes and truss. Previously, they were always sitting with the floor position, and you couldn't separate them in any way. So let's select the spreadsheet, and let's get rid of it because I don't need it anymore. Let's go up into the view pane, and I've selected delete pane, and that has now removed it, and I'm back to my CAD shaded custom tab setup, which is what I like to work in most of the time, and probably something that you do as well a lot of the times. Okay. Okay, so let's now go over to the right side and bring up the position tool, which is one of my favorite features that we've added in this release, in release 42. It's a great feature that can be used by everyone, report, design, and perform users. The inspiration behind this feature was to introduce a simple way to move an object in an XYZ coordinate. The window, the position tool, is a non-modal tool, just like the cuts and adjustments tab is. So let me pin it here, and I'll pin the library browser below it as well. So this is now back to the default R42 setup. You can also float it around like this by double clicking on the header and position it everywhere if you'd like. I prefer this way because it doesn't take up any extra screen real estate. But we'll bring it back here to our default positioning. So when there's no objects selected, you'll see that our X, Y, and Z text boxes are gray. There's no information there to display. But as soon as we select an object, a valid object that can be moved by the position tool, then those fields will be populated with the coordinate of the object. Note you can also bring that position tool up by Control-Alt-P for the users who like shortcuts. So let's select the person object, and as you can see, its x coordinate is at 1 meter, y at -2.5, and z is 0.5. The same information that you previously had to hover over and see in a tooltip. So now that I've selected the other person, it's updated, and x value is now -1. Note that when I select the fixture, it's telling me that the fixture is an invalid object, and to move it, you should be using the nudge fixture with Alt plus the arrow keys. So it will inform you if an object is invalid, such as venues. So our default venue objects are also invalid, and they show up with the pink background and the pink text. Now, if you want to nudge a fixture along, you just select it, and using Alt and the arrow keys, you can move it along the pipe, which again is not a new feature. Okay, so here I am. I have one person selected, and it's really easy to move them along. So using the arrow keys, I can move in the positive or minus X and Y and Z directions as shown. And this is currently being done with the one person object that we have selected here. You can also type in, so if you know exactly the coordinate you'd like to place an object, you don't have to use the arrows, you could just type it in, and you could be as precise as you'd like. So if you want 3.25 meters for Y, type in, and the object will move as you type or as soon as you finish by hitting Tab or Enter to accept the value, and the object is repositioned as you specified. Okay, I'm now going to undo and bring back the person back to the original position as I had him before. And now we're going to try this again. And we're going to have two objects selected. So when you have more than one object, the position tool will display multiple objects selected, and it will show a yellow background. Now, because these two people are at the same Y coordinate and the same Z coordinate, those values appear. But because one is at -1 meter X and the other one is at +1 meter Y, you have a blank space for the X value. If I select that text box, the word multiple applies there as further confirmation for you that those are different X values for the selected objects. Okay, so if we have them selected and you place your cursor in there and start typing a value, let's say 3 meters, now it has accepted it, and both objects are moved to the coordinates specified. Okay, so basically now we have two objects selected, exactly one on top of the other, as shown. That's why all three X, Y, Z's values are shown, and the object status down at the status bar is set to 2 objects are selected. So this works the same. I can use the arrows and move the 2 objects around, or I can enter a value and they will be repositioned. So I'm going to reposition them back to where they were at -1 meter. Now they are both one on top of the other, and I'd like to move the second person back to where he was standing. So I'll need to only select one person. And in a situation like this, cycle selection comes in handy. So let me undo that for you and bring back the person. So now that they're together at the same coordinate, if you use the Shift button pressed down while you click on an object, you enable cycle selection. And as you continue to click, it'll scroll through the numbers. As you can see, 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. So now that I have one person selected and I type in the value of 1 meter for X, I've now moved one person over to the X equals 1 meter, leaving the other one where they are. So cycle selection is definitely an important tool when you're working in the software, and thought I'd introduce it here. Now, as I'm moving around, you'll notice that the increments of the position tool are 0.5 meters, and that is related to the grid spacing. So if you go into the document options, draw defaults tab, and look at the grid interval, it is by default for metric set to 0.5 meters. And for imperial users, it would be set to 2 feet. Okay, if you want to change it like I just did, I've changed it to 1 meter. Now when I use the arrows, it'll jump by 1 meter increments. We'll switch that back to the 0.5 to continue. But you can basically set up your grid and therefore setting up your position tool increments at the same time as you prefer. Okay, so I've now used the position tool with these mannequin objects. We know that it doesn't work with fixtures. It works with the stage. It works with truss. You can move truss up or down or as you wish. Fixtures on pipes and truss will not work, but fixtures on the floor, because they're treated like a regular object, they definitely can use the position tool, which can be convenient as well. So you can select fixtures on the floor and type in a value and move it to the desired position very easily now. I'll move it back to its 5 meter position, and I'll select 4 fixtures here. And as you can see, because they share the same X and Z values, they're highlighted yellow, and their Y value is different. So I could easily move that whole row of fixtures up and down or left and right on stage pretty easily. Okay, so at the moment I've been working in the CAD shaded view. What if I was in just shaded view only? So full shaded view, and I select an object in here. The advantage of the position tool is that it's still available for you in your CAD shaded view, and it can be used here to move items around, which under regular previous R41 and earlier, you wouldn't be able to move these items around because your move commands and other commands are not available here. So this is one of the benefits of the position tool. And I guess as you're looking at your file from a shaded view and you have beams selected, you might see something that you didn't see previously in a wireframe. And as a result, you don't have to switch back and forth. You just make the necessary changes to the object from here using the coordinates. Okay. So the position tool was created as a tool like the cuts and adjustment tool. I've had some people ask me why and why it wasn't set up as or created as a toolbar. And the reason is that for now it is showing X, Y, and Z, but our future plans involve using all of that real estate space underneath that first row and adding other properties such as rotation or scaling or anything else that we feel could be useful and can be done live. And probably just change that name from position tool to a properties sidebar, and the rest will be the same. So for now, to save on real estate, I'll move it up, I'll float it by double clicking on the header, and I've moved it up into the right side of my toolbar area. Save on screen real estate. Okay. So here's another new feature. Behind my stage is an LED wall, and I've opened the properties, and as you can see, I have here with my cursor circling the display as screen checkbox option. So what this does, it basically keeps an LED wall as an LED wall object, but it will display the video content assigned to it as a screen. So the advantages of doing that is that a screen object requires less memory to be saved while wysiwyg is simulating and you're visualizing your scenes and your files. So by doing this, especially if you're running a very large file and you have a lot of LED walls in your scene, it can slow down your shaded view, as you know. So this is one way to alleviate that problem without having to draw a second set of objects or the same wall as screens. So just go into the properties, check off the display as screen option, and that's it. And now you're looking at this as if it was a bunch of screen objects, not LED walls. And then your performance should go up. And once you're done, or if you need to take a screenshot and you want to see it as an LED wall display, then go back, uncheck, and we are back to an LED wall. So this was developed in mind to help you with running video along with a lot of beams at the same time, so performance purposes. And if you go into the LED wizard, you'll notice that it's been updated slightly as well, and it has the display as screen option. So if you want to create with that option up front, you can, or you do it later on from the properties. So just introducing that piece of information for you. And I'll take a sip of water. Okay. So another feature that we designed with performance in mind is the new cast shadows property. So I'll select the object again, the person on stage, and in the appearance tab, you'll notice that there's an object bounding box or group box underneath the elements list. and cast shadow is enabled. So cast shadow will be enabled by default for all regular objects because usually they do cast shadows. Objects like truss and fixtures will have this option disabled or off by default. Okay. We wanted to introduce this feature to give you more control and give you the ability to set shadows at the object level as opposed to only at the global level where you either had all shadows on or all shadows off for objects, for truss, and for fixtures. So let me select the truss, and as you can see, by default, truss does not have that option enabled. And the same thing with a fixture. It will be off by default. So in the view options, I'm going to go into the shaded view options and to the performance tab. And as you can see, under the show footprints shadows category, we still have our hang structures and fixture bodies checkboxes, but now we have two radio buttons, the all radio button and the enabled only radio button. Okay, so this works like before. If you disable shadows, then no shadows will be displayed, regardless of what the cast shadows property is on or off. When it's on and you have the radio button set to all, then all hang structures and all fixture bodies will cast a shadow. And that is similar to before, and we designed it that way. So, but if you want to specify on a per object level, you need to set it by enabled only. So let's go back. Let's select these two mannequins, center stage, go into their properties. We see that the cast shadow option is enabled. And I will select my front lights. And as you can see behind them, there are some shadows like before. I'll now select just one person on the right, turn off the cast shadow, and reselect the lights. And as you can see, the person on the left with the cast shadow option has shadows. The one on the right does not have shadows. So you probably want to use this feature when you have important objects on stage that you wish to see a shadow for. But if there's other objects that you don't want to, or if they're very complex and that might slow down on the visualization, you have the option now to turn it off without turning off all shadows. Okay, I'll move these people out of the way with my new handy position tool and make space for a new layer, new objects coming in on the cast shadows layer. And I've made visible a piece of truss and a fixture in the same positions as the people were previously. So selecting these items, you'll notice again, just to confirm, the cast shadow object option is disabled for the truss and for the lights. And confirmed, there it is. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll enable the cast shadows only for the left side and leave the other ones unchecked. So this will apply to both the truss and to the fixture. I'll go into the view options in the shaded view and make sure that we have this set properly. So right now it's set to all and shadows are enabled. So there you see, regardless of the cast shadow property, we will see shadows. But if I set it to enabled only, only the objects that have the cast shadow property enabled, which are the ones on the left, will cast a shadow, and the ones on the right will not cast a shadow. So maybe you want to use this for truss that's on stage, and you want to see the effects of the shadows from those trusses, or for fixtures like that. But truss that's up in the venue or off stage, why waste the resources to calculate shadows if they're not going to be visible? So you can use these properties to your advantages and help your performance out. So let's move our truss back to where it was. Let's move our people down stage like before, using the position tool, incorporating that into the demo as much as I can. Okay, and now I've selected my green truss structure. And usually when you export to a DWG or DXF file, we all know that the truss does not carry all of the information with it. Just the main chords get exported up to R41, and the cross members do not. Well, in this release in R42, we've updated our truss exporting functionality. And what we've done is we've allowed cross members as well to be exported. So what I've just done here is I've just taken this file as a demo, as a sample, saved it as a DWG file, which I will just reopen back into wysiwyg. So switch to DWG, export truss, open this file. I think it was set to meters, which is the default scale. And once it opens back up, click next. Finish. Okay. Here's our file. It looks a little bit different than before because I've lost some objects, obviously, that are not supported in the export, like the LED walls. I've lost textures. But let's zoom in on the truss, and that truss looks the same as it did before. You can clearly tell it is truss now. Switch to isometric, and there is our truss. It is now a library, an imported library item. It is no longer a native truss structure. But if you're working with any colleagues that are running AutoCAD or any other CAD software, and you want to share your file and show them that this is truss, I think that problem is now resolved as well. Okay. Okay, so I've now started a new file, and this one, in the previous case, we were adding lines. In this case, we're taking lines out. So we have a feature that is called internal mesh cleanup, which, as you can see, here's a standard library item, the William and Mary Hutch table. And on the top tabletop, you see all those lines emitting from the one spot, creating triangles, which are usually how meshes are saved in graphics. And obviously, there's a lot of lines in the isometric, which you don't see in the plan view because these are obviously library symbols. On the right side, I've put a table and chair, and I'm now going to create a custom library item of 8 chairs surrounding this table, because obviously you don't always want to use banquet chair number 1 in your for your banquets or other events. So let me create this custom library item. Let me take the table and right click and move the table to the top or to the front. And this right here will be what I use to create now a custom library item. And the reason why I'm doing that, you'll see in a minute. So create the new library item, and I will call this custom table R41 because I'm running in R41 right now, as you can see by the orange toolbars that are across the top, which I apologize for not mentioning at the beginning. So here we go. We've just created it. Let's go over to the library browser up to the top, and in the custom folder, we now have custom table R41 library item listed there, and we bring it in. And we'll notice when you put it side by side with the default library items, because we don't have a library symbol, you see all of the beautiful lines all these triangles that make your drawing not so great and not so clean. So those are the objects in the shaded view. So we're going to do the same stuff. I'm going to save this file, but this time we're going to open it up in R42 next and see how it handles the internal lines of the library items and of the custom library objects that are created. So here's R42 with my colorful toolbars, and I'm going to go there and select the file and open that up. Loading. Okay, so we're in isometric view. Let's come here into the plan view. That right there, which I've selected, is our R41 custom table that was created. Let's switch over to the isometric view and let's look at the same table that we were looking at before. Much cleaner than before. All the internal lines that were on the tabletop are all gone. So I've opened up R41 just to do a side-by-side or just to compare for you. That's R42, clean, and R41 is the one that has all these internal lines. Now, switching to the custom library object. Here it is. That's my original with the table and 8 chairs. So I'm going to repeat the same commands. Create custom library object like before. We're going to call it custom table R42. Next, finish. We'll go over to the library browser on the right at the in the library section. Go to the custom, find custom table R42, there it is, and bring that across and into the file. And I'll drop it right beside. So you already noticed that there's a lot less lines in there. Yes, there are still lines in the more lines that you see compared to the library objects themselves, but this is a curved chair, and so those lines will be there. But the tabletop is much cleaner than before. And if it's hard to see probably for you, but in the isometric view, even the tabletop has less lines. The ones going across the tabletop are no longer there. The ones that are there for the chair curvature and the tablecloth are all still there because it's not a straight or flat surface. Okay, so that definitely is an improvement. I'm now going to open up a 3ds file actually, just to show you that this also works in any CAD importing file, so it could have been anything. I've selected this file because I like the way it showed off this feature. I'm opening this up first in R41 for you. It's not too complex of a file, but it'll definitely show our improvements. So it is a house, and there are a lot of diagonal lines there in this imported geometry. Let me open up, let me go back and open it up in R42. Same file. Same scale using the auto scale feature, which sets it to 10 meters along the longest path, which is great. Okay, this is R42. Same file, same model, same house, a lot less lines, a lot cleaner. So I've just clicked on my Z key to zoom fit my view and zoom fit. So there's the front of the house, there's the top of the house, and let's compare. This is R41. This is R42. Let's look at it from a front view. There's R41 front view. That's R42 front view. So if you're printing that on a plot, it'll be a lot cleaner for anybody reading that drawing. And here it is in isometric view, R41, of course, and a much cleaner R42 as well. So we've removed all the unnecessary lines. So what did we do to do this? When we open the file, we do some pre-processing on it. So if you are noticing that your files are taking a little bit longer to load in R42 than compared to R41, it's because we are now figuring out which lines are not necessary and hiding them so we don't show them in our wireframes anymore. In doing so, we've actually, by reducing the lines, we've actually improved on performance a little bit. And actually talking to some users already that are using R42, I'm hearing that they notice that their wireframe views and working in CAD is a lot easier for them. Last file that I'll open up here is another larger file. The previous file was less than a megabyte. This one here is an 80 megabyte file of a city plan. And we'll look at it in both 41 and 42 again. And this is an FBX file. So we have a 3ds example and an FBX example. So it took a little bit longer for this one to load up, and there's a lot of lines in it. And it's very hard to see what that is from this view or zoom. That is basically a peninsula of and with a city. And on the left side, you see all these lines that emanate from one point and go across. Those are all internal lines that were there previously. In R42, we'll open the same file. Loading. And a lot of those lines are now no longer there. We don't see all those lines diagonally going across the view. And actually, if you look now, that actually looks like a city plan. You could see the streets, you could see the buildings. A lot cleaner. There still are a lot of lines in this model, but I thought I'd show it to you and give you a large case example. And actually moving around isn't so bad, but it doesn't seem to be so bad in this file particularly. Possibly in another file or in one of your files that you've been working on, maybe you can compare in R41 and R42 and do a comparison, because from what I'm hearing from some users and in other cases, it will definitely improve your usability and performance as you zoom in and out and pan around the wireframe views. So this is a much better, cleaner drawing, and great job to the WIG dev team. Okay, so we're now opening up another file, which I'm going to use to show the improvements that we've done in R42 for lasers. So you can see here that we're in release 41, orange toolbars again, and it says R41 across the top. And here is R42, and we have our colored toolbars as well, just to make it easier for everybody. So I'm selecting a laser unit on that pipe, and I'm just going to open up its properties, and we'll look and see it's a K-Vent Club Max 2000, if that matters. But I'm using Pangolin today, Pangolin Beyond 3.0 to feed my laser input. And this one will use input 1, and I have it patched to DMX-A address 1. The other laser unit to the right or on stage left is same fixture, input 2, again from Pangolin, and it's now on DMX address 2. Here we are. I've opened up Pangolin now, and I'm actually on the static page. Let me switch over to the hot beams, and I'm gonna just select just a standard hot beams laser pattern. And first we'll look at it in release 41. So here's R41, and it's hard to see, but the lasers are actually playing right now. Please note that the view options are set to basically almost default, 50, 50 all the way down. Beam exposure is set to 60, and ambient light is set to 5. This is R42. Same laser input, same view options. So ambient set to 5, volumetric, all the brightness at 50 with beam exposure at 60. And you can see the difference right away. The R42 beams are much brighter, they're thicker, they're more potent. This is R41 here. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to open up the view options and bring up the beam exposure to 80 to start to see the beams at almost the same intensity. But you'll notice that the beams are thinner and they have a dashed line in them previously. So this is the R41 laser, and here is the R42 laser. Same pattern. So these are definitely much crisper. These are the straight line or hot beam patterns. This was one of the weaknesses of the R41 laser system. So let's stop that. Let's go over to the statics, and I just want to get a straight laser sheet, and comparing R42 right here and R41, and it's much brighter. So let me turn down the beam exposure slightly. But you could see all these internal lines in the laser beam itself, basically creating an artifact in the previous releases. And in release 42, there it is. There's no internal lines. There's no artifacts at all. So R41 again, R42. Another big improvement for our laser beam visualization. I'm going to switch to this diagonal oval or elliptical laser pattern. And here's another example, and look how clearly you could see those internal lines in release 41, and the R42 is much cleaner and displaying the laser as it should. And also remember that I've been running R42 with exposure 60 the whole time. I did not have to change it. So and that's important because as we bring a mixed laser pattern like this one, in R41, you cannot see the hot beams or stick beams until you bring up the beam exposure, as I just did. Now you see the red lasers, but the rest of the laser now is overexposed. It's way too bright and it's unrealistic. That problem does not exist anymore in R42. This is R42 running the same laser pattern with our beam exposure, again, set to 60. We haven't changed anything. Everything is aligned to default 50, okay? And I'm now bringing R41's beam exposure back down to 60 as well, just to do a fair comparison. And as you can see, it's very difficult to see that laser beam. But in R42, it's very clear. Let's move the camera around just to see the lasers from a different angle. So overall, we're seeing improvements in a lot of different areas, in the hot beams, in the laser sheets, and in the mixed. And overall, because of these changes and not having the internal lines, we now have an overall better laser beam visualization. So let me bring up, I have various laser units in my file. I'll bring up 3 different patterns, outputting from Pangolin, just a variety of different stuff. That way we can have a look. So there it is in R42. You can see it's much better. We'll flip it over to 41 as well. It actually, from what I can see, it actually looks better when you run it on my native computer than across the internet. It is losing a little bit of quality, but overall, I think you can see that the hot beams and the sheets and even the cones are all looking really good. Now, let's introduce some of the new smoke that we added in release 41 into these new lasers as well, and start to see the effects of that smoke in the laser beam. And I personally think they look pretty good. I hope you do as well as you're watching this. So another great enhancement overall by the wysiwyg development graphical team on this one. And hopefully that'll improve your laser visualization for you in wysiwyg in release 42. I just changed one of the patterns now. I like this. I like the smoke in the flat sheet. So that's what I introduced. There it is. I'd be happy to hear your feedback on this after the video. Here it is in R41, running the exact same pattern with the exact same settings in the view options. Very hard to see, so I'll crank it up for you. And that would be release 41 running the exact same thing. Well, the visuals say it all. And last but not least, and the one that many of you have been probably waiting for and asking about, is the new VR feature. So for this, I've had to switch over to another computer, and we've recorded this. So if your computer has the system specs required, and it has Steam VR running, then it will allow you to go into VR mode. So I am just putting on my headset right now. Today we're using a Vive system. As you could probably tell by the controllers. Let me make sure I have them correct. So the one on the right has my movement, move right, move left. The one on the left has my rotate and my teleport. So I have these correct. The blue and the yellow lines, those are my laser pointers, as I like to call them, or controller lines. And let me move over here to the left side so that way we don't have the stage behind us and we could focus in on the labels on these buttons. So we have, starting from the right side, we have the, turn them off. That's using the show help button on the right controller. You could toggle them on and off. So that's the top button on the right. And as I'm moving along the trackpad, you can see the little red buttons appearing. So that's where my hand, my finger is as I touch it. So you have move forward and move backward on the right side, and move left and move right. So that's how you would navigate around this space. And on the left side, we have rotate left and rotate right on the left controller. So those are also associated with movements, as well as the teleport more and teleport less buttons on the same trackpad. So there they are. You see my red dot. And at the top of the left controller, there is a show menu. And when you click it, show menu appears as such with the blue box by default. And you have all the controls there. So we'll touch upon that later. So now I'm moving over and looking at the stage and getting set up in our VR space. Okay, so we will move towards the stage here. I'm moving forward and backward using the right controller, move forward button. And I can change the direction of where I'm looking by shifting my head. And wherever the headset is and wherever I'm looking when I move forward, that's the direction I move into. And same when I move backward, it'll be the opposite. Using the move left and move right, I'm moving horizontally or left and right. And you could even use buttons on a diagonal. So if you press between move forward and move left, you will move in a diagonal. Now the Vive has on the side controllers to move up and down as such. So it takes a little bit of practice to get familiar with all of these controls. So that's what we're doing here. And you'll probably be doing when you first start up in VR the first few times. Using the left controller, I'm now rotating right and rotating left as such. And you could actually hold it down and rotate all the way around. This is currently using smooth rotation. And we'll do the same thing going the opposite direction. Okay. So now when you're familiar with all of these, you can start to move around your space. So that's what I'll do right now. I'll just fly around. And I've moved up to the right side here, moved up on the platform. And why not? Let's go across the bridge as well, across the back of the stage. And rotate. And now you can see our stage from this perspective. You can see as I'm moving around, my pointers are telling me the distances of the items that they are hitting. So I'm just flying around, as you can see, and just experiencing the space basically in a 3D environment, immersing myself in VR. It is pretty interesting to experience this and experience the depth of the file, of the stage of your drawing, which is not easily done with the 2D. On the left controller, I've now pressed the forward button on the trackpad, and that has enabled an arch, which is our teleport. As you move the button further away, forward, it moves it further away, and if you want to move closer, you would press teleport less, or the back button on the left controller, and it'll adjust. There is a green box, and the green box tells you, which might be hard for you to see, the distance of the teleport, which at this point was set to 47 feet. So the distance in the box tells you the distance where you will teleport to, and you use the pointer on your controller to estimate it based on what it's hitting. In this case, I'm going to try to get up to the bridge. It was about a 70-foot teleport, and I just made it just past the stage, or just past the bridge. Perfect. So it's a little bit darker up here. There's less lighting. Probably a good spot to show you the menu. So right now I have, I'm in the menu settings. And what I'll do is I'll actually increase the alpha a little bit, so to make it more solid and make it easier, hopefully, for you to see the menus. Okay, so we have menus across the bottom, which I'm now moving with my left and my right keys. I have now stopped on the camera. You can see that there's an underline, and now I'm at looks. So the underline tells you which menu you currently have, you're currently on. So I'll go back to camera, because we've been talking about movements most of the time, and we've talked about the camera controls, and we've talked about the teleporting. But there is another way to move around in a wysiwyg file, and that is to create cameras. So I've entered the camera, and I'm turning the carousel by using the left and right, and now I've selected front by hitting the trigger. And now I am no longer on the bridge. I am now at the front of the catwalk, And I've turned around, and there you see I am facing the stage again. So the camera, these are the static cameras that you would draw within wysiwyg. They are available for you in VR, and you could use them as another method to move around. So I'm back on the bridge because I had a camera for the bridge. And as you can see, the names of the cameras are available in the little boxes. The red box is the one that is the currently selected item. Okay. So now I am in looks, and I'm going to select the downstage center look. And as you can see, the lighting did just change. Let's keep on going. Let's look at the look number 1. And I've just turned on another look that has a lot of lighting. And as you can see, it's probably a little bit, feels like it's gotten a little bit slower. I can tell, and probably you can too. This is because we have 400 lights right now that are all turned on, and I'm in the middle of a lot of these lights. And yes, that's a lot of work for our graphics engine to do. But this will vary from one computer to another and from one file to another. So my recommendation to you is try out VR, try out your different files, and see where the limits are. Because one file will have a different limit than another, and a different system will as well. Okay, so I'm continuing to move around here. I've moved into the looks here. I'm going to turn on the down center again. And as you can see, I have all of these regular controls that you would have in wysiwyg at my fingertips on the VR controllers. So you can adjust them from this menu on your left controller. Currently in scenes and going along the carousel, this file has a lot of scenes in it. So I've just selected the stage all scene. And as you can see, a lot of my file has now disappeared because these items are on layers that are currently turned off. All the trussing and lights are off. Let's bring back some of that stuff. Let's go and select another scene. Let's go with this one, ALX all, and it brings back a lot of the truss and lighting, but not all of the lights. And here we go, no seating and statues. As you can see, the statues that were at the right and left were gone, but now they're back when I selected all layers. Okay, so that's scenes. Now moving into the view options. The view options menu are a lot of the common shaded view controls that you would have. There's at the top the volumetric toggle that goes between volumetric and enhanced beams. Usually we'll run it at volumetric. Ambient slider controls the ambient light. So now that I'm on that control, as I move left, it has dimmed the ambient levels. And moving right, it has brought it back to a higher level. Moving down to the beams, so I have beam intensity in here. I can increase the beam intensity. I also have footprint and flare and exposure. So those are the shaded view controls that we have available on this view options. This might be a little bit difficult for you to see. I'm doing my best with controlling and holding it steady for you. And then the very last one here on the right is the menu settings. This one over here has all options related to VR. So the first one at the bottom is the menu scale. That controls the size of the blue box or the menu box where all these items are. So you can make it larger or smaller. I guess smaller is good when you don't want to cover up a lot of your screen, but it has to be large enough to read it, obviously. The menu angle right now, it is the one that controls the angle of the menu as it is displayed, depending on how you hold the controller. I've moved up into the background colors, and we have red, green, blue, and alpha. So I'm going to add a little bit of red to the blue and change the color of the background to a purplish magenta color. The next item on the list is the controller model beams. So these are the yellow and blue laser pointers that I've been talking about. They've been very useful when I move around. It tells me the distance from where I am to the object that I am pointing at. And obviously these are very helpful when you are going to perform a teleport, or depending on what you're doing in your file. So as I move around, whatever it collides with, it gives me the readout. And in this case, I'm going to do a teleport. That stage left stairs is about at 80 feet away, and I'm going to try to land just in front of it. There we go. And the little white sphere represents the position of where the teleport will end. Perfect. So I've turned on the menu again, and I've turned off the controller beams. So now they're no longer visible, and now they're back. The one above it is the controller models themselves. These gray Vive controllers that appear, I've now toggled them off. So I'll also toggle off the model beams, and I'll toggle off the labels. So you could also run in VR without anything appearing in front of you and just experience the scene as it is. So maybe when you're doing a demonstration to others, you would prefer to have it set with all of these items disabled or turned off. And then we can come back in here and turn them on again, sorry. So even the labels, now that I'm familiar with my controls, I don't need to actually show the text and the lines anymore. The next one is the haptic option, sorry. Basically, there is feedback to the controllers when you move around and you rotate, and it'll vibrate the controllers. So you could enable or disable as you like. The next one above it is rotation. So we have two options, smooth rotation and stepped rotation. I've turned off smooth rotation, so now we are experiencing what stepped rotation is like. And these are at increments of 22.5 degrees. And now I have re-enabled the smooth rotation like before, which is the default. And then teleport. Teleport has a smooth teleport option, and it has, I think it's called instant. And so when you teleport, as we've been doing, it's a smooth teleport. You travel to that position. You can also set it where it's an instant, and when you teleport there, you won't move. It'll just dim and come back, kind of like when you're changing cameras as before. It's just an instant thing. So I kind of like the smooth teleport. So let's do that and teleport back to the front here. And I'll move back a little bit as well. Okay, I think I've covered all of the menus that we have here. And what I'll do is I'll shut that off. We'll move away from this file now. This was used to show a lot of the controls and the menu items and camera movements as well. All right, we'll switch to another file to show a different scene. Okay, so this is the other scene that we're going to use. This is a file that some of you may recognize if you came and visited me at LDI. And I've just put the HMD headset back on, and I'm just getting adjusted with the controllers. And in this file, because it is in metric, you see that the displays are in metric there. And I'm moving around. There's a lot more happening here, which is why I wanted to show this file, because we have VR, we have lights using a cue list, we have video, and we even have moving truss. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I am getting about 30 frames per second. I am running this on a GTX 1070, which would be the minimum that we would recommend for VR, although the official recommendation by Oculus Rift and Vive is a 970. The 1070 does a better job. And obviously anything better than that, so 1080, 1080 Ti, and then the 2000 series will do a much better job with VR than this current graphics card is doing. But overall, I am still able to move around on the stage, see the lighting, see the video, experience the depth of the design of my stage while watching all of these other elements dynamically moving. There is a lot of complexity when it comes to the dynamic beams video. So on some files that have static lighting, you'll definitely experience better performance. And I think overall it is still a useful tool that you can incorporate into your day-to-day work and experience your designs in a VR. In VR. We have some cool things planned for VR coming in future releases as well, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so those are all the features that we have for today for R42. As always, it's great to hear from you. So if anybody has any comments about what you like or don't like about R42 right now, please send me an email. It's great to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.
Dino, thank you for an absolutely awesome presentation. I'm sure the viewers there will really appreciate your insight and your knowledge and experience on wysiwyg there. We've already had quite a lot of questions come through, but please keep those questions coming. We're going to choose a few to put to Dino now. We've got a little bit of time to ask some more questions. So if you do have some, type away, send them over, and our moderators will look through those. Dino, if we can kind of start with a quick question about truss, if that's okay. We've had a question here about future versions of wysiwyg, and if you've got any plans to integrate truss loading information similar to Vectorworks, Braceworks within wysiwyg.
So we have truss properties that we are planning to incorporate. The user will be able to enter, in addition to the weight of the truss itself, but and the fixtures which are calculated, some other weights that will come in. At the moment, there is though no features that would match what Braceworks currently has. That would be something maybe further in the future, not in the immediate future.
Okay, we've got a lot of questions coming in about VR. A lot of viewers here are really excited about VR, and thanking you for your overview of that. They're just wondering though, what GPU do you run the VR mode in, etc., etc. Can you just kind of go through that for viewers, please?
Sure. So we would definitely recommend that you get yourself a very high level video graphics card. We would recommend nothing lower than a 1070, but definitely a 1080 Ti would be a good choice at this time with what's available in the market. If you have your hands on a GTX 2080 or 2080 Ti, those would be your best options, as well as a good computer spec overall with good CPU. But yes, those would be our recommendations right now.
Fantastic. And there's a question here about fanning. Is it possible to use the position tool as a fanning tool?
No, it is not currently possible to use the position tool. And by fanning, are we talking? Well, the position tool only works for objects. So I'm guessing. I'm not very clear on the question. Are we talking about fanning objects?
Yeah, the question here is a fan possible for objects using the position tool?
No, it is not. But if you are looking to fan objects, I would recommend maybe creating an arc first, and then using like an array along path on that arc to position them in a fanned orientation.
Perfect. Thanks, Dino. So a lot of the other questions that we're having here are quite personal ones to specific users regarding your own setups and your systems. So we'll pass these questions along to Dino after this webinar for him to answer and get back to you on an individual basis if that's okay. So I think we'll probably wrap up there today. We have slightly overrun, but I think everyone agrees there's been some great answers, tips and tricks there to help everyone along the way. The next webinar is February. It's scheduled for Wednesday, the 20th of February. That's at 1400 EST or 1900 GMT. That webinar is going to be delivered by lighting designer Jeremy Roth, a USA lighting designer, looking at transforming artists' ideas and desires into a finished product using wysiwyg. So a really exciting webinar there, sharing Jeremy's approach to using wysiwyg on everything from concerts and tours, but also to art installations and festivals and corporate events. Jeremy's going to bring in real life examples to help you as viewers understand how better to use wysiwyg, including quite a few tips and tricks on how to work effectively with wysiwyg from his own perspective, particularly when drafting, and how he's found the software invaluable and an effective aid to the production process. You can register now through the CAST website, or there will be a follow-up email sent out shortly after today's webinar, and there's a link contained within that where you can register for the next one. Also within the follow-up email, there'll be a quick link to a short survey. If you can take some time to complete that survey, it will help us here to shape and form future webinars. So that's all for today. Thank you very much, Dino and the rest of the team. And thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in to this fantastic webinar about Release 42's features. We look forward to seeing you here very soon for the next CAST webinar. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.